I was folding Emily's laundry when the phone rang. State University's financial aid office delivered the news that shattered our world in 30 seconds. My 17-year-old daughter's full-ride scholarship, worth $87,000, had been revoked due to fraudulent information submitted on her behalf. As I stared at Emily's acceptance letter still taped to our refrigerator, the caller mentioned discrepancies in family income reporting. Someone had deliberately called to correct the financial information. My sister Jennifer's name fell from the woman's lips like a stone into still water. My blood turned to ice. The scholarship letter had arrived on a Tuesday in March, and I still remembered how Emily's hands trembled as she opened the thick envelope. For 3 years since her father David died in that construction accident, Emily had transformed into someone I barely recognized. Gone was the carefree 14-year-old who spent weekends at sleepovers and shopping malls. In her place stood a determined young woman who treated every day like a military operation. Her alarm buzzed at 4 a.m, 6 days a week. By 4:30, she was lacing up her running shoes for cross-country practice. The high school track was empty and dark when she arrived, but Emily ran those 5-mile loops like her life depended on it. Coach Williams always said she had the heart of a champion, pushing through shin splints and rainy October mornings when other students stayed in bed. After practice, Emily rushed home for a quick shower, then grabbed the breakfast I had waiting. She studied vocabulary flashcards while eating oatmeal, her advanced placement biology textbook propped against the toaster. I watched her review chemical equations between bites, marveling at her focus. Most teenagers complained about early mornings, but Emily never uttered a single protest. School consumed her days from 7:30 until 3:15, but Emily's schedule was far from over. She tutored struggling freshmen in algebra for an hour after classes ended, earning $12 per session. Every penny went into her college fund, carefully tracked in a notebook she kept in her backpack. On weekends, she worked 8-hour shifts at the public library shelving books and helping elderly patrons navigate computer systems. The scholarship essay had taken her 2 months to perfect. I found drafts scattered across her desk, each version more polished than the last. She wrote about losing her father, about watching me work double shifts as a night nurse at Regional Medical Center. She described coming home from school to find me collapsed on the couch, still wearing scrubs, too exhausted to cook dinner. Emily had learned to prepare meals, manage household bills, and maintain her perfect grade point average simultaneously. Her guidance counselor, Mrs. Rodriguez, called Emily the most dedicated student she had encountered in 25 years of education. Teachers submitted glowing recommendation letters describing Emily's leadership in National Honor Society, her volunteer work at the animal shelter, and her participation in academic decathlon. She had earned first place in the state science fair with her research on antibiotic-resistant bacteria, a project that consumed her entire junior year. The State University scholarship was merit-based, awarded to only 12 students, statewide, each year. Recipients needed minimum SAT scores of 1,400 cumulative GPAs above 3.9 and demonstrated community service. Emily exceeded every requirement. Her SAT score reached 1,520 after months of preparation using library books because we couldn't afford private tutoring. Her GPA remained a perfect 4.0 through 7 semesters of high school. When the acceptance arrived, Emily cried for the first time since her father's funeral. She had chosen pre-med as her major, determined to become a pediatric oncologist. The scholarship covered tuition room board and books for 4 years, valued at $87,000. For our family living paycheck to paycheck since David's death, this scholarship represented salvation. Emily had already planned her course schedule, researched professors, and connected with other incoming students through social media. She decorated her bedroom wall with printouts of dormitory layouts and campus maps. Her excitement was infectious, filling our small apartment with hope for the first time in years. That Tuesday evening, Emily called her grandparents and her Aunt Jennifer to share the incredible news. My parents, Robert and Patricia, seemed pleased but reserved during the conversation. Jennifer congratulated Emily enthusiastically, asking detailed questions about the scholarship requirements and financial aid process. At the time, I thought her interest stemmed from concern for her own twin sons, Tyler and Connor, who would begin their college search soon. Emily spent the following weeks preparing for orientation programs and course registration. She researched textbook costs, budgeted for personal expenses, and even started a workout routine to prepare for dormitory living. Her future seemed bright and secure, built on years of sacrifice and determination. The scholarship represented more than money to Emily. It validated her choice to sacrifice social activities and teenage experiences for academic excellence. While her classmates attended parties and football games, Emily studied late into the night, driven by dreams of medical school and helping sick children. The full-ride scholarship meant she could focus entirely on her studies, without the burden of student loans or part-time jobs. Now, holding that devastating phone call in my memory, I realized how naive we had been to trust family with Emily's precious opportunity. The drive to Jennifer's house felt like traveling through molasses. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles ached, but I forced myself to maintain the speed limit. Rage clouded my vision, but beneath the anger lay a deeper pain that threatened to consume me entirely. 20 minutes later, I pulled into Jennifer's circular driveway, noting the perfectly manicured lawn and expensive landscaping that surrounded their two-story colonial home. Mark answered the door wearing a confused expression that quickly shifted to concern when he saw my face. Jennifer appeared behind him, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel, her blonde hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. She wore designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. "Danielle, what's wrong? You look terrible," Jennifer said, stepping aside to let me enter their spacious foyer. I followed her into their gleaming kitchen, where granite countertops reflected the afternoon sunlight streaming through bay windows. Family photos lined the walls displaying Jennifer's perfect life with Mark and their twin sons. Everything in their home screamed success and stability, a stark contrast to my modest apartment across town. State University called today. I began watching Jennifer's face carefully for any reaction. Emily's scholarship has been revoked. Jennifer's eyebrows rose in what appeared to be genuine surprise, but I caught a flicker of something else in her expression. Guilt, perhaps, or maybe relief. "That's terrible," she said, setting down her dish towel. "What happened? Did Emily do something wrong?" No, Emily did absolutely nothing wrong. My voice remained steady despite the fury building inside my chest. Someone called the university and provided false information about our family's financial situation. Mark frowned, leaning against the kitchen island. False information. What kind of false information? The caller claimed I own property and receive regular financial support from family members. I kept my eyes locked on Jennifer's face. They said Emily's Aunt Jennifer called personally to correct discrepancies in our financial aid application. The color drained from Jennifer's face so quickly that I thought she might faint. Her hands trembled as she reached for the kitchen counter to steady herself. Mark's confusion was evident as he looked between his wife and me, clearly unaware of what had transpired. "Jennifer," Mark said slowly, "what is Danielle talking about?" My sister's composure crumbled like a house of cards. She sank into one of their leather bar stools, her perfectly applied makeup, unable to hide the shame written across her features. "I can explain," she whispered, but her voice carried no conviction. "Then explain." The words came out sharper than I intended, but I was beyond caring about politeness. Jennifer's story unfolded in halting sentences, punctuated by tears and desperate justifications. She had called State University's financial aid office 3 weeks ago, claiming to be concerned about errors in Emily's application. She told them our family owned our grandmother's old house in upstate New York, which had actually been sold to pay for nursing home expenses 5 years earlier. She fabricated stories about regular financial support from our parents, describing fictional monthly payments that had never existed. But why? Mark's voice cracked with disbelief. Why would you do something so cruel to Emily? Jennifer's answer shattered any remaining illusion of family loyalty. She and our parents had discussed Emily's scholarship during Sunday dinner at Robert and Patricia's house. Tyler, Jennifer's son, had applied for the same scholarship program, but received a rejection letter due to his mediocre grades and lack of extracurricular activities. While Emily maintained straight A's and worked tirelessly, Tyler coasted through high school with minimal effort. Tyler works just as hard as Emily, Jennifer protested weakly. He deserves opportunities, too. Tyler has a C+ average and has never held a job, I replied incredulously. How is that working just as hard? You don't understand the pressure we're under? Jennifer continued, her voice rising defensively. Mark's business has been struggling, and we have college expenses for both boys coming up. Emily's scholarship should go to someone who really needs it. The irony was staggering. Jennifer's family lived in a 4,000-square-foot home with a swimming pool and 3 luxury vehicles in their driveway. Mark owned a successful accounting firm that served several major businesses in our metropolitan area. Meanwhile, Emily and I shared a 2-bedroom apartment, and I drove a 15-year-old Honda with over 200,000 miles. Someone who really needs it, I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. Emily and I live on my nursing salary. We shop at thrift stores and clip coupons. Emily works weekends at the library to save money for college expenses. Mark stared at his wife with growing horror. Jennifer, do you realize what you've done? You've destroyed Emily's future over jealousy. It's not jealousy, Jennifer snapped. It's about fairness. Emily gets special treatment because everyone feels sorry for her about David. Tyler needs help too. Our parents' involvement became clear as Jennifer continued her confession. Robert and Patricia had encouraged her actions, believing that Emily's scholarship represented an unfair advantage. They had provided details about our family's financial history, helping Jennifer craft convincing lies about property ownership and support payments. The 3 of them had planned this betrayal, methodically discussing strategy during weekly family dinners, while Emily shared excited updates about her college preparations. The family comes first, Jennifer said, echoing something our mother had apparently told her. Tyler is family too, and his needs matter just as much as Emily's. The conversation continued for another hour, but Jennifer's justifications became increasingly desperate and illogical. She claimed Emily could work her way through college like other students, completely ignoring the financial impossibility of earning $87,000 while maintaining pre-med course requirements. She suggested Emily could attend community college and transfer later, dismissing the scholarship opportunity as unnecessary luxury. Mark apologized repeatedly, clearly mortified by his wife's actions. He offered to call the university himself and explain the situation, but I knew the damage was irreversible. Scholarship committees took fraud seriously, and Emily's application would remain permanently flagged. As I prepared to leave, Jennifer made one final statement that revealed the true depth of her callousness. Emily is smart enough to find another way, she said. Tyler isn't, and this might be his only chance. I walked out of that house, understanding that my sister had chosen to destroy my daughter's dreams to benefit her own child. The The betrayal cut deeper than David's death, because it came from people who claimed to love us. Family was supposed to provide support during difficult times, not orchestrate our downfall for personal gain. The next morning brought fresh horrors as I began investigating the full scope of my family's deception. Emily had already left for school, unaware that I was spending my day off uncovering the details of how our relatives had systematically destroyed her future. I started with phone calls to State University's financial aid office, hoping to understand exactly what information had been provided and when. Mrs. Carmen Silva, the financial aid coordinator, seemed genuinely sympathetic when I explained our situation. She had handled Emily's case personally and remembered being surprised by the discrepancies between our original application and the information provided by my sister. According to her records, someone claiming to be Emily's aunt had called twice, first to express concern about potential errors, then again to provide specific details about property ownership and family support. The caller was very convincing, Mrs. Silva explained. She provided Emily's social security number and birth date, which made her seem legitimate. She claimed to have discovered that your family owned property in Cooperstown that hadn't been disclosed on the financial aid application. The property in question was my grandmother's farmhouse, which had indeed belonged to our family until we sold it to pay for her nursing home care. Jennifer knew the address, the sale date, and enough details to make her story believable. She had told the university that our family still owned the property and rented it out for additional income. The caller also mentioned monthly support payments, Mrs. Silva continued. She said your parents provided you with $1,200 monthly to help with household expenses, and that this support hadn't been reported on Emily's application. These fictional support payments represented pure fantasy. My parents lived on a fixed income from Social Security and a small pension from my father's years working at the Postal Service. They had never provided financial support beyond birthday gifts and occasional dinners. In fact, I had helped them with grocery money on several occasions when their medication costs exceeded their monthly budget. After ending my conversation with Mrs. Silva, I drove to my parents' house to confront them directly. Robert and Patricia lived in a modest ranch-style home in an older neighborhood where they had raised Jennifer and me 30 years earlier. The house needed fresh paint, and their small front yard was brown from the harsh winter weather. My mother answered the door wearing a faded housecoat and slippers, her gray hair uncombed, and her face showing every one of her 68 years. She seemed startled to see me on a Thursday morning since I typically visited on weekends. "Danielle, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be sleeping after your night shift?" I followed her into their cramped living room where my father sat in his recliner watching morning news programs. The room smelled of coffee and arthritis medication, and magazines were scattered across their coffee table. Dad muted the television and turned to greet me, but his smile faded when he saw my expression. "We need to talk about Emily's scholarship," I said without preamble. The reaction was immediate and telling. Mom's face crumpled with guilt, while Dad simply nodded as if he had been expecting this conversation. Neither of them attempted to deny their involvement or express surprise about the situation. "Jennifer told us what happened," Mom said quietly. "We thought it was for the best." For the best? I struggled to keep my voice level. How is destroying Emily's future for the best? Dad set down his coffee mug and leaned forward in his chair. "Emily is a smart girl, Danielle. She'll find another way to pay for college. Tyler isn't as gifted academically, and this scholarship might be his only opportunity." The conversation that followed revealed the depth of their planning and the coldness of their calculations. My parents had provided Jennifer with detailed information about our family's financial history, including bank account numbers, employment records, and documentation about property sales. They had helped her craft believable lies about ongoing support payments, even suggesting specific dollar amounts that would sound realistic to university officials. Tyler has always struggled in school, Mom explained, as if academic performance was determined by genetics rather than effort. Emily gets good grades easily, but Tyler has to work harder for everything. This characterization of Tyler's academic performance was laughably inaccurate. Tyler spent most evenings playing video games or hanging out with friends while Emily studied late into the night. He had never held a part-time job, participated in volunteer activities, or demonstrated any particular commitment to education. His college applications relied heavily on his parents' ability to pay full tuition rather than any academic merit. Emily works 20 hours a week at the library, I pointed out. She wakes up at 4 every morning for cross-country practice. She tutors other students and volunteers at the animal shelter. How exactly is Tyler working harder? My parents exchanged glances that spoke volumes about their skewed perspective on fairness and family loyalty. They genuinely believed that Emily's advantages stemmed from natural ability rather than tremendous effort and sacrifice. In their minds, Tyler deserved equal opportunities despite his unwillingness to work for them. The most devastating revelation came when I learned about their communication with the university. Mom had actually impersonated me during one phone call, claiming to be Emily's mother, and confirming the false information Jennifer had provided. She had used my maiden name and birth date details she knew from helping me complete Emily's original financial aid applications. I was trying to help Tyler, Mom said defensively. Jennifer was so worried about his future, and we thought the university made a mistake giving Emily such a large scholarship. Dad nodded in agreement. $87,000 is a lot of money, Danielle. Tyler could use that opportunity just as much as Emily. Their reasoning was fundamentally flawed and morally bankrupt. They had confused equality of opportunity with equality of outcome, believing that Tyler deserved the same rewards as Emily, despite vastly different levels of effort and achievement. They had rationalized fraud and identity theft as acts of family loyalty, while ignoring the devastating impact on their granddaughter's dreams. As I prepared to leave their house, I discovered one final piece of information that nearly broke my remaining composure. Tyler knew about their plan. Jennifer had promised him that Emily's scholarship would become available if they corrected the supposed errors in her application. Tyler had actively participated in gathering information about Emily's college plans, asking innocent questions during family gatherings that helped his mother build her deceptive narrative. The betrayal was complete and systematic. 3 generations of my family had conspired to destroy Emily's future for Tyler's benefit. They had used their knowledge of our financial struggles against us, weaponizing our trust and love to justify their cruel actions. Emily's scholarship was gone, but the deeper wounds to our family relationships would take much longer to heal. Sleep eluded me that Thursday night as I lay in bed processing the full magnitude of my family's betrayal. Emily had returned from school excited about a biology lab experiment, completely unaware that her college dreams were crumbling, while she focused on molecular structures and cellular respiration. I listened to her enthusiastic description of protein synthesis, while knowing I would soon have to deliver news that would shatter her faith in family bonds forever. By Friday morning, I had made a decision that surprised even myself. Instead of confronting my family with angry accusations or desperate pleas, I would methodically document their crimes and pursue justice through proper legal channels. The nursing profession had taught me the importance of careful documentation and following protocol skills that would serve me well in seeking accountability for Emily's destroyed scholarship. My first stop was the public library, where I spent 3 hours researching federal laws regarding financial aid fraud. What Jennifer, Tyler, and my parents had done wasn't simply unethical behavior among family members. Their actions constituted multiple felonies, including identity theft, wire fraud, and conspiracy to defraud a federal financial aid program. State University received federal funding, making Emily's scholarship a federally backed program, subject to serious criminal penalties. Identity theft laws were particularly clear about the severity of impersonating another person to financial institutions. Mom's phone call pretending to be me carried potential sentences of up to 5 years in federal prison and substantial monetary fines. Jennifer's fraudulent claims about property ownership and support payments qualified as wire fraud, since she had used telephone and electronic communications to perpetrate the scheme. The research both encouraged and terrified me. While criminal penalties could bring justice for Emily, pursuing charges against my own family members would permanently destroy our relationships. Jennifer's twin sons would face the trauma of seeing their mother arrested and potentially imprisoned. My parents, despite their misguided loyalty to Tyler, were elderly and fragile, unprepared for the stress of criminal investigations and court proceedings. Nevertheless, Emily's future hung in the balance. She had worked tirelessly for 3 years, sacrificing her teenage social life and accepting adult responsibilities to earn her scholarship. My family's deliberate sabotage had stolen more than money. They had undermined Emily's faith in meritocracy and family love. If I failed to seek justice, I would be complicit in teaching her that hard work meant nothing when others were willing to cheat. Saturday afternoon brought an unexpected revelation when I checked my email and found a message from State University's Scholarship Committee. They were conducting a routine audit of recent financial aid adjustments and wanted to schedule a phone interview about Emily's case. Mrs. Silva had flagged our situation as potentially suspicious, noting inconsistencies between the original application and subsequent corrections. This development offered a glimmer of hope, but I knew the university's investigation would likely focus on procedural compliance rather than reinstating Emily's scholarship. Damage to their federal funding could result from awarding aid based on fraudulent information, making them unlikely to reverse their decision regardless of the circumstances. I spent Sunday morning at our kitchen table creating a detailed timeline of events with supporting documentation. Bank statements proved we had never received the monthly support payments Jennifer had claimed. Real estate records confirmed the sale of my grandmother's property 5 years earlier. Employment records showed my consistent nursing salary without additional income sources. The most challenging aspect of building our case involved recording equipment. Our state permitted single-party consent for recording conversations, meaning I could legally document admissions of guilt without informing the other participants. I purchased a small digital recorder and practiced using it discreetly, knowing that clear audio evidence would be crucial for law enforcement officials. Emily's heartbreaking attempt to salvage her college plans began Sunday evening with phone calls to State University's admissions office. She spoke with 3 different representatives explaining our family's financial situation and requesting reconsideration of the scholarship decision. Each conversation ended with polite but firm explanations that financial aid determinations were final once made. Maybe I could take a gap year and reapply next year, Emily suggested during dinner, her voice artificially cheerful, despite obvious disappointment. I could work full-time and save money for tuition. I wanted to tell her about my investigation to explain that justice was coming for the people who had stolen her dreams. Instead, I encouraged her to continue planning for college while I worked behind the scenes to restore what had been taken from us. Monday morning brought devastating news from Mrs. Silva. During her weekend research, she had discovered that Jennifer had contacted 3 other universities where Emily had applied, spreading the same false information about property ownership and family support. Schools that had waitlisted Emily were now removing her from consideration, entirely believing she had committed financial aid fraud. This revelation transformed my family's betrayal from a single cruel act into a systematic campaign designed to ensure Emily could never receive need-based aid anywhere. They hadn't simply stolen one scholarship. They had poisoned her academic reputation at multiple institutions. Jennifer's meticulous planning suggested months of preparation and coordination with Tyler and my parents. The scope of their scheme demanded an equally comprehensive response. I began documenting every conversation, saving screenshots of text messages, and preparing evidence packets for law enforcement agencies. Federal prosecutors would need ironclad proof of intent and coordination to successfully pursue conspiracy charges. Tuesday evening, I received a phone call from my friend Sarah, who worked as a paralegal at a downtown law firm specializing in education law. She had heard about Emily's situation through mutual acquaintances and offered to connect me with attorneys experienced in financial aid fraud cases. Her firm couldn't represent us directly due to potential conflicts of interest, but she provided valuable guidance about legal procedures and realistic expectations. Document everything, Sarah advised. Save every text message, email, and voicemail. Record conversations if your state allows it. Federal prosecutors love cases with clear evidence and obvious intent to defraud. The legal consultation scheduled for Wednesday would determine whether we had sufficient evidence to justify criminal charges. I felt nervous, but determined, knowing that Emily's future depended on my willingness to seek justice against people I had loved and trusted for my entire life. Wednesday's legal consultation confirmed my worst fears and best hopes simultaneously. Attorney Michael Chen specialized in education fraud cases and had prosecuted similar schemes involving family members manipulating financial aid systems. He reviewed my documentation with the clinical detachment of someone who had seen countless betrayals disguised as family loyalty. "You have an extremely strong case," he confirmed after examining bank statements, real estate records, and my detailed timeline. "Your family members have committed multiple federal felonies with clear intent to defraud. The conspiracy aspect makes this particularly serious." Michael explained that federal prosecutors actively pursued financial aid fraud cases because they undermined the integrity of educational assistance programs. Recent legislation had increased penalties specifically to deter family members from manipulating scholarship systems. Jennifer's actions could result in up to 10 years in federal prison, while my parents faced potential 5-year sentences for their supporting roles. The attorney's willingness to work on contingency basis reflected his confidence in our case's strength. He had already contacted federal investigators who expressed interest in pursuing charges, particularly given the multi-institutional scope of Jennifer's fraud campaign. Destroying Emily's prospects at multiple universities demonstrated sophisticated planning that prosecutors found especially egregious. Thursday morning, I filed comprehensive reports with 3 separate agencies: local police for identity theft charges, the FBI's Financial Crimes Division for wire fraud investigation, and the State Attorney General's Office for scholarship fraud prosecution. Each agency requested the same documentation, creating a paper trail that would eventually lead investigators directly to my family members' doors. The hardest part of seeking justice was maintaining normal relationships while knowing what was coming. Jennifer called Thursday evening to invite Emily and me to Tyler's birthday party the following weekend. Her cheerful voice made my stomach churn, but I accepted the invitation without revealing my plans. Gathering additional evidence would strengthen our case, and Tyler's party would provide opportunities for recorded conversations. Emily sensed something was wrong but couldn't identify the source of my tension. She attributed my distracted behavior to stress about her college situation and tried to comfort me with optimistic plans for community college enrollment. Her resilience amazed me, but I knew she was struggling privately with disappointment and confusion about her scholarship loss. Friday brought a phone call from Mrs. Silva with unexpected news. State University's financial aid audit had identified several suspicious cases involving family members providing conflicting information about applicant finances. Emily's case was one of 6 being referred to federal investigators for potential prosecution. The university was cooperating fully with law enforcement to protect the integrity of their scholarship programs. This development accelerated the timeline for criminal charges, while providing additional validation for our case. Federal investigators would have resources and expertise that local prosecutors might lack, increasing the likelihood of successful convictions. More importantly, the university's cooperation suggested possible reconsideration of Emily's scholarship if fraud could be proven conclusively. Saturday's birthday party at Jennifer and Mark's house required every ounce of acting ability I possessed. Emily and I arrived with wrapped presents and forced smiles, pretending to celebrate Tyler's 18th birthday, while knowing he had actively participated in destroying his cousin's dreams. The party included extended family members, neighbors, and Tyler's friends from high school, creating perfect cover for discreet recording. Jennifer had transformed their backyard into a celebration venue with balloons, banners, and catered food that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Tyler held court near the swimming pool, accepting congratulations and gift cards from relatives who praised his recent acceptance to a local private college. His admission had been guaranteed through early decision policies available to full-paying students whose families could afford $40,000 annual tuition. "Tyler's so excited about starting college in the fall," Jennifer announced to the gathered relatives. "We're proud of his hard work paying off." The irony was suffocating. Tyler had indeed worked hard to maintain the C+ average that enabled his college admission, but his family's efforts to destroy Emily's scholarship had required far more planning and coordination than anything he had achieved academically. Jennifer's pride seemed genuine, as if she truly believed her son deserved credit for opportunities purchased through fraud and sabotage. My digital recorder captured everything from its position in my purse. Jennifer described her relief that Emily's situation had worked out for the best, explaining to curious relatives how scholarship committees sometimes made initial errors that required family intervention to correct. She portrayed herself as a concerned aunt who had helped prevent Emily from receiving undeserved advantages. "Emily is so smart," Jennifer told my Aunt Carol. "She'll figure out how to pay for college on her own. Tyler needed that scholarship more because academics don't come as easily to him." The most damning evidence came during a private conversation between Jennifer and my mother near the outdoor kitchen. They discussed their strategy for handling questions about Emily's scholarship, agreeing to emphasize Tyler's greater need and Emily's supposed ability to succeed without assistance. Mom mentioned feeling guilty about the phone call, but insisted they had done the right thing for the family overall. "Danielle will understand eventually," Mom said quietly. "Emily has advantages that Tyler doesn't have. It's only fair that opportunities get distributed more evenly." Tyler's own admissions provided crucial evidence of his knowing participation. While opening birthday presents, he thanked Jennifer loudly for taking care of the Emily situation and ensuring his college plans could move forward. His casual reference to his cousin's destroyed dreams revealed the callous attitude that had enabled his family's fraud. The party continued for 3 hours, during which I gathered nearly 90 minutes of recorded conversations. Family members discussed the scholarship fraud, openly, apparently believing their actions were justified and unlikely to face consequences. Their confidence in avoiding accountability would soon prove tragically misplaced. Sunday evening brought the final piece of evidence I needed. Jennifer sent a group text to immediate family members expressing satisfaction that everything had worked out perfectly. She included laughing emojis and congratulations about Tyler's college plans, treating Emily's devastation as a successful family project rather than a cruel betrayal. The text message thread revealed months of planning and coordination. Screenshots showed conversations dating back to January, when Tyler had first received his scholarship rejection letters. Jennifer, mom, and dad had methodically planned their fraud campaign, gathering information during family dinners and coordinating their stories before contacting universities. By Monday morning, I had compiled comprehensive evidence packages for law enforcement agencies. Audio recordings, text message, screenshots, financial documentation, and witness statements created an overwhelming case against my family members. Federal investigators would have everything needed to secure criminal convictions and potentially recover damages for Emily's destroyed opportunities. The hardest decision involved timing. I could have warned Jennifer about the coming investigation, giving her opportunities to delete evidence or prepare legal defenses. Instead, I chose to let justice proceed without interference, knowing that my family's crimes deserved consequences regardless of our blood relationships. Tuesday morning, I submitted final evidence packages to all investigating agencies and waited for the justice system to respond. Emily left for school unaware that her family's betrayers would soon face federal criminal charges. Within 72 hours, police would be knocking on doors throughout our extended family, armed with warrants and determined to prosecute scholarship fraud to the fullest extent of federal law. Wednesday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that usually filled me with hope for new beginnings. Emily had already left for school, her backpack loaded with textbooks she studied religiously, despite her uncertain college prospects. I was pouring coffee when my phone buzzed with a text message that made my hands tremble with anticipation. The message came from attorney Michael Chen. Federal warrants executed this morning. Multiple arrests in progress. We'll call with updates soon. I sat at our kitchen table staring at the steam rising from my coffee mug, knowing that across town my family members were discovering the consequences of their calculated cruelty. Part of me felt guilty for orchestrating their downfall, but Emily's destroyed dreams and shattered trust demanded justice that only criminal prosecution could provide. The first call came at 9:15 from my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, whose excitement was barely contained as she described the police activity at Jennifer's house. 3 federal agents and 2 local officers had arrived with search warrants loading boxes of documents and computer equipment into unmarked vehicles. Jennifer and Mark had been taken away in separate cars, leaving their neighbors buzzing with speculation about white-collar crimes and federal investigations. They had handcuffs on Jennifer, Mrs. Patterson whispered conspiratorially. Mark kept shaking his head like he couldn't believe what was happening. The whole street was watching from their windows. My phone continued ringing throughout the morning with calls from relatives who had heard about the arrests through our small town's efficient gossip network. Aunt Carol demanded explanations I wasn't prepared to provide, while Uncle Frank expressed shock that sweet Jennifer could be involved in anything requiring federal intervention. The most difficult call came from Mark shortly after noon. He had been released after questioning, but remained under investigation for potential conspiracy charges. His voice shook with exhaustion and disbelief as he tried to comprehend how his wife's actions had destroyed their family's reputation and financial security. Danielle, I need you to know I had no idea what Jennifer was doing. Mark said, his words tumbling together in desperate haste. The FBI agents showed me evidence I never knew existed. Jennifer forged documents using my company letterhead to support her lies about your family's income. This revelation added another layer to Jennifer's fraud scheme. She had created fake employment verification letters, claiming I worked as a medical consultant for Mark's accounting firm, earning substantially more than my actual nursing salary. The fabricated documents explained the fictional support payments my parents had supposedly been providing, creating a comprehensive false narrative about our family's financial situation. I'm filing for divorce. Mark continued, his voice breaking with emotion. I can't let her actions destroy Tyler and Connor's futures, too. They're innocent kids who don't deserve to suffer for their mother's crimes. Mark's call was interrupted by breaking news coverage on local television. The regional news director had picked up the story of federal agents investigating scholarship fraud involving multiple family members. Reporter Jessica Martinez stood outside Jennifer's house describing the charges as part of a larger federal initiative to crack down on financial aid manipulation schemes. Federal prosecutors allege that family members conspired to defraud State University's scholarship program by providing false information about an applicant's financial need, Martinez reported. The sophisticated scheme involved forged documents, identity theft, and coordination among multiple family members over several months. The news coverage continued throughout the afternoon with updates about additional arrests and the scope of the federal investigation. My parents had been taken into custody at their house shortly after Jennifer's arrest, charged with conspiracy and identity theft for their supporting roles in the fraud scheme. Emily called during her lunch break, having heard about the arrests from classmates who had seen the television coverage. Her voice carried confusion and growing awareness that our family's scandal was connected to her lost scholarship. Mom, kids at school are saying Aunt Jennifer and Grandma and Grandpa were arrested for some kind of fraud, Emily said quietly. Does this have anything to do with my scholarship? I couldn't bring myself to explain the full truth over the phone, instead promising to discuss everything when she came home from school. Emily deserved to hear the complete story directly from me, including my role in seeking criminal prosecution against our relatives. The afternoon brought a call from Attorney Chen with updates about the federal investigation's progress. Jennifer had confessed to her crimes during FBI questioning, apparently hoping for leniency by cooperating fully with investigators. Her detailed admissions had implicated Tyler as an active participant rather than an innocent beneficiary of his mother's scheme. Your nephew knew exactly what his mother was doing, Chen explained. Text messages on his phone show he encouraged her to contact additional universities to prevent Emily from receiving aid anywhere. Federal prosecutors are considering charging him as an adult despite his age. This news devastated me more than anything else in the investigation. Tyler was 18 years old, legally an adult, but emotionally still a teenager, whose poor judgment had been enabled by his parents' toxic values. His active participation in destroying Emily's future demonstrated a level of cruelty I hadn't expected from someone I had watched grow up. The media attention intensified throughout Wednesday evening, with reporters calling my phone and knocking on our apartment door. I declined all interview requests, unwilling to discuss family trauma in public forums. Emily and I watched the news coverage together, seeing our relatives' mugshots displayed on television alongside descriptions of their alleged crimes. I can't believe they did this to me, Emily whispered, tears streaming down her face as she processed the magnitude of her family's betrayal. I trusted them. I shared my college plans with them because I thought they cared about my future. Thursday morning brought news of Tyler's arrest on federal conspiracy charges. Despite his age, prosecutors had decided to pursue adult charges due to the sophistication of his participation and the serious impact on Emily's educational opportunities. His mugshot appeared on news websites alongside those of his mother and grandparents, marking the complete destruction of a family that had prioritized jealousy over love. The local newspaper's investigative reporter had uncovered additional details about Jennifer's criminal history. She had been investigated 5 years earlier for manipulating our grandmother's will, though charges hadn't been filed due to insufficient evidence. The pattern of fraudulent behavior suggested deeper psychological issues that had finally resulted in federal criminal charges. Friday's developments exceeded my most optimistic expectations. State University's legal department had contacted Attorney Chen about reinstating Emily's scholarship pending the outcome of criminal proceedings. The university recognized Emily as an innocent victim of sophisticated fraud and wanted to minimize damage to her educational prospects. They're also considering additional support for delayed enrollment, Chen reported. The university's president is personally involved in ensuring Emily doesn't suffer permanent consequences from her family's crimes. Emily's tears of joy when I shared this news reminded me why seeking justice had been the right choice despite its painful consequences. Her scholarship represented more than financial aid. It validated the merit-based system that rewarded hard work and achievement rather than family connections or fraudulent manipulation. The weekend brought final news about plea negotiations and sentencing recommendations. Jennifer faced up to 10 years in federal prison and substantial fines, while my parents could receive 5-year sentences for their supporting roles. Tyler's charges might be reduced through plea agreements, but his college prospects had been permanently damaged by his criminal record. Justice was coming for Emily, but the price of that justice included the complete destruction of our extended family relationships. The betrayal had been so deep and systematic that forgiveness seemed impossible, leaving Emily and me to rebuild our lives without the relatives we had once trusted and loved. 6 months later, I stood in Emily's dormitory room at State University, helping her arrange medical textbooks on shelves that last fall had seemed impossibly out of reach. Sunlight streamed through windows overlooking the campus quad, where new students walked between buildings that would shape their futures for the next 4 years. Emily's scholarship had been fully reinstated, along with additional support for her delayed enrollment and counseling services to help process her family trauma. The federal criminal trials had concluded 3 weeks earlier with plea agreements that brought substantial justice for Emily's stolen dreams. Jennifer received 7 years in federal prison and was ordered to pay restitution covering Emily's lost semester and associated costs. The judge had been particularly harsh in sentencing, noting that Jennifer's crimes had targeted her own niece and undermined educational opportunity systems designed to help deserving students. My parents faced different consequences that reflected their supporting roles in the conspiracy. Mom received 2 years of home confinement and community service, while Dad was sentenced to 18 months of probation. Their advanced age and health issues influenced the judge's decision, but both had lost their reputations in our small community and faced permanent estrangement from Emily and me. Tyler's case had been the most complicated given his age and the influence of his mother's manipulation. Federal prosecutors ultimately agreed to reduced charges in exchange for his testimony against Jennifer and his completion of community service requirements. His college admission had been revoked due to his criminal record, forcing him to reconsider his educational plans entirely. The investigation had revealed the true scope of Jennifer's fraudulent activities, extending far beyond Emily's scholarship. She had manipulated charity organizations, falsified tax documents, and committed identity theft multiple times over several years. Federal agents discovered evidence of at least 12 separate fraud schemes, making Emily's case part of a larger pattern of criminal behavior. Mark had followed through on his divorce proceedings, gaining custody of Tyler and Connor, while Jennifer served her prison sentence. He had also provided crucial evidence against his ex-wife, including financial records that documented her systematic deception. His accounting firm survived the scandal, though he lost several major clients who questioned his judgment and oversight capabilities. The most unexpected development came from the crowdfunding campaign that Emily's high school classmates and teachers had organized. Local news coverage of the family fraud had generated sympathy for Emily's situation, leading to donations that exceeded $20,000. The money would cover medical school application fees, MCAT preparation courses, and other expenses that her scholarship didn't include. Emily's academic performance during her delayed first semester exceeded even her high school achievements. She earned a perfect grade point average while volunteering at the campus medical center and participating in undergraduate research programs. Her professors described her as exceptionally motivated and mature qualities that had been strengthened rather than diminished by her family's betrayal. The trauma counseling provided by the university had been crucial for Emily's emotional recovery. She struggled initially with trust issues and anxiety about family relationships, but gradually developed healthier perspectives on loyalty, fairness, and personal responsibility. Her counselor helped her understand that seeking justice for wrongdoing wasn't betrayal, even when the perpetrators were family members. Tyler had eventually reached out to Emily through a letter delivered by his father. His apology was lengthy and detailed, acknowledging his role in destroying her scholarship and expressing genuine remorse for his participation in the conspiracy. Emily had chosen to forgive him while maintaining boundaries that protected her emotional well-being. "I understand that Tyler was influenced by his mother's values," Emily told me during one of our weekly phone calls. "But I can't forget that he actively chose to hurt me when he could have refused to participate." Connor Tyler's twin brother had maintained a relationship with Emily despite his family's crimes. He had been completely unaware of the fraud scheme and was devastated by his mother's actions. His continued friendship provided Emily with evidence that not all family relationships had to be sacrificed because of Jennifer's choices. The scholarship fraud case had attracted attention from state legislators interested in strengthening protections for educational financial aid programs. New laws were being proposed to increase penalties for family members who manipulated scholarship systems and to provide additional resources for fraud detection. Emily had been invited to testify before legislative committees about her experiences as a victim. "My relationship with my parents remained complicated and painful. They had written letters expressing remorse for their participation in Jennifer's scheme, but their apologies felt incomplete and self-serving. They continued to minimize their roles while expressing concern about their own reputations and legal consequences rather than focusing on the damage they had caused Emily. We thought we were helping Tyler," Mom had written in her most recent letter. "We never meant for Emily to suffer so much." Their inability to acknowledge the inherent cruelty of their actions made reconciliation difficult. Emily had chosen to maintain minimal contact with them, accepting their cards and gifts, while keeping emotional distance that protected her from further disappointment. The transformation in our own relationship had been profound and positive. Emily and I had developed deeper trust and communication skills through our shared experience of seeking justice against family members. She understood that I had chosen her future over family harmony, a decision that demonstrated unconditional love more clearly than any words could express. "You taught me that real family members protect each other," Emily said as we finished arranging her dorm room. "Aunt Jennifer and Grandma and Grandpa taught me that blood relationships don't guarantee loyalty or love." The life lesson from our ordeal extended beyond family dynamics to questions of justice, accountability, and personal responsibility. Emily learned that hard work and merit should be protected from manipulation by people who preferred shortcuts to honest achievement. She discovered that seeking justice sometimes required difficult choices that prioritized principles over comfort. The experience had also strengthened Emily's determination to become a pediatric oncologist. Working with children facing life-threatening illnesses would require the same resilience and commitment to justice that had helped her survive her family's betrayal. She wanted to protect vulnerable patients from people who might take advantage of their circumstances. As we walked across campus toward the medical center where Emily would begin volunteering the next week, I reflected on the unexpected gifts that had emerged from our family's destruction. Emily's character had been tested and proven stronger than I had ever imagined. Our relationship had deepened through shared adversity. Justice had been served, despite the personal cost of pursuing criminal charges against relatives. The scholarship that Jennifer had tried to steal from Emily had been restored. But the real victory was Emily's refusal to let betrayal diminish her dreams or corrupt her values. She had learned that some people would always choose jealousy over love, manipulation over honesty, and selfishness over family loyalty. More importantly, she had learned that her response to such people would define her character and determine her future happiness. Standing outside the medical building where Emily would spend the next 4 years preparing to heal sick children, I felt proud of the woman she was becoming and the choices we had made together. Justice had required tremendous courage and sacrifice, but it had also restored my faith in systems designed to reward merit and protect innocent people from the cruelty of others. Have you ever faced a situation where family members betrayed your trust for their own benefit? How did you handle the conflict between family loyalty and seeking justice for wrongdoing? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like this story if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming family trauma, and share this with anyone who might need to know they're not alone in facing difficult family relationships. Thank you for listening to Emily's story, and I wish you the strength to choose justice and truth, even when it's painful.